Solar PV Cast by Shift, a podcast exploring solar energy and the role it plays in improving our lives and our planet. Here's your host, Chris Palliser.
Welcome once again to the Solar PV Cast. My name is Chris. I am your host. It is brought to you by Shift. For all your energy storage and solar needs, make sure you visit shift.ca. Now, this episode is kind of on the what's happening in Canada in the solar space and some of the exciting things that are happening. This product, I guess, makes so much sense to me. The first time I heard about it, I think in Europe, like 5 years ago, I was like, yes, why aren't we doing this? And France actually passed a law, I think in 2022, that said any parking lots with over 80 spaces must have solar carports. And that's what we're here to talk about today. To discuss their product and get his take on it is Zac Jolliffe, from the Business Development Manager at VCT Group in Ontario. Zac, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. It's really great to be here.
Great to see you again, I should say. Zac and I met at the Atlantic Canada Solar Summit over cocktails at the reception, and just as soon as you said solar carports, I thought, this is my guy.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, that was a great event. Lots of great people in that room, and great to see lots of good things going on the east coast of the country. Nova Scotia is a bit of a hot spot for some updated policies around solar, and lots of good stuff going on out there.
That's what it's all about, and having those conversations, and this is one of them. So VCT Group, that's who you're with. That's who's making these solar carports, which we'll get into the specifics of shortly. Just tell us a little bit about your role there and VCT Group.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm 2 years into working with VCT, and I love it here. It's a great spot, great company, and lots and lots of good things going on. So we're 17 years in business as of 2025, and we're pleased to have survived the proverbial solar coaster in Ontario. We've been through the ups and downs. We predate the FIT program in Ontario and made it through intact out the other side of the FIT program. And we're happy to be continuing on in the solar game here. So we are loosely organized into 5 divisions here at VCT. So solar construction is the bread and butter of our business. That's where most of our revenue comes from as a company. Really focused on the commercial and industrial space. We don't really dabble in utility or dabble in residential. It's the office buildings, the industrial, the manufacturing, multi-unit residential. This is where we're focused. The other parts of the company are EV charging. So we design and install EV charging infrastructure, level 2s, level 3s, looking to grow in that space in coming years as there's more and more electrification of road transportation happening. We run an O&M division as well, operations and maintenance, that provides maintenance and monitoring services, across the province of Ontario primarily. And then we've got this carport product, which is going to be the focus of conversation today. So I'll save details on that for a little bit. But then we have a sister organization as well called Community Energy Development Cooperative. That's a renewable energy cooperative. And the co-op is in the business of aggregating investments from its membership and then deploying them into solar assets at scale. And so that renewable energy finance angle is something that we've got some expertise in here at VCT as well.
Amazing. So yeah, you're busy.
Yeah, lots on the go. I've got a great team that works with me here, and we're focused across all 5 of those divisions.
So you do, like you said, mostly commercial roof mounts, multi-unit residential buildings. That's kind of been the focus.
Yeah, that's where most of our projects are, and it really does vary between the commercial office buildings, the multi-unit residential, and then everybody loves a nice big flat open rooftop to work on. So when we can find it, a nice manufacturing facility, industrial facility, warehousing facility, these are great projects for us as well.
Yeah. What's the uptake like, just out of curiosity, on the West Coast here? We're I think we're a little bit behind. Ontario's definitely ahead of us when it comes to the world of solar. And we're now starting to see with some of these incentives in BC, more people looking at multi-use residential buildings, and it financially makes sense for businesses now to take advantage of those big flat open roofs. What's the uptake like in Ontario? Are you seeing it more and more? Is it just coming to it now?
Yeah, I'd say we're properly booming right now in Ontario in the commercial industrial sector. So, going back a few years when net metering was all there was, that was a bit of a tough time, especially dealing with a bit of a hangover from the feed-in tariff program. But then with the announcement of and finally the passing of the Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit, that really changed the project economics in the commercial industrial space, as it's for those tax-paying corporations. And we started to see a nice uptick right away. And here at VCT, we had a record year last year for sales, so things are going well here. We've got more projects in the construction calendar than ever before, so we're happy on
Great.
that front. And with this new incentive out this year, just recently announced in the past few weeks through the Save On Energy program, where we've got a good fit for the program, you can layer those incentives together and find returns that Ontario hasn't seen in 10 years or so.
Yeah, that's great. What are some of the system sizes that you guys are doing?
Yeah, typical projects for us would be a couple hundred kilowatts, maybe to a few megawatts or so. So
Amazing.
that's our sweet spot. We do a lot of stuff in the 400 kilowatts, 500 kilowatts. We're always after some bigger projects too, but they tend to be a little fewer and further between.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are big projects. It's funny. I've had conversations with I had a gentleman on, Johan from Sweden, from Alight was the company, and another one from Chroma Energy Group in Tennessee, and so everything's relative, right? Like in my world, I'm used to seeing 1 megawatts, the big one, and usually there may be like 40, 50, 70, 150 kilowatts. And then you talk to these big players in the world of solar, and they're like, yeah, 5 megawatts is kind of standard. And it's just like,
Yeah,
wow. Or sometimes we're doing 30 megawatt projects and 100 megawatt. I had Dan Balaban from the Traverse Solar Project on.
oh wow. Okay.
I feel like my numbers are going to be off, 465 megawatts, I think. Just massive projects.
Yeah,
So, okay, maybe 100 kilowatt, 200 kilowatt is small in some eyes, but in my eyes, man, that's huge.
yeah. Well, it's great to talk to those folks. It makes you feel good to know that there's other people doing this work around the world and making progress, and that we're in it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. No, the rest of the world is not drill, baby, drill. So we're
Yeah,
okay there.
yeah,
Yeah, so these solar carports, like I said off the top, this is kind of what you guys have got into. And it makes such incredible sense to me because you've got these parking lots. Now, I did read something about people were trying to turn the concrete into solar, but then you're parking over it. So that doesn't make sense. So let's
yeah.
put a canopy over the top. Everyone's going EV, comes with the EV charger. It's beautiful. So tell us about this, the solar carport you guys are rocking.
Yeah, well, first off, starting on the user experience, we think they make a ton of sense as well. Wherever they exist, they're the first places that people park under. On a day like this, looking outside in Ontario today, it's cold, it's snowy. And if you've got the opportunity to not have to brush the snow off your car when you get in there, people are going to take that opportunity. Same thing on the flip side, in the summertime when it's hot out and the sun's kind of heating up those black leather seats, or any kind of car really. If you've got the chance to park in the shade anywhere you go, you're going to take that chance and park in the shade. So the people who have the opportunity to use them really like them, and the people who have got them in their facilities, they get a chance to impress their clientele, not only with an amenity, but also with a real statement about sustainability. One of the downsides of rooftop solar is that it's on the roof. You can't see it, and people may come to a building that's got rooftop solar and is a net zero facility, but if they don't see it, they might not know it's ever there. And if you put a solar carport in your parking lot, it will be the very first thing that everybody sees when they come to your place, and it will be the very last impression they have before they leave as well. So for anyone who's looking to make a statement about sustainability, you want a solar carport.
That reminds me, we just there's a TikTok that we posted about a school solar array on top of a school. And this was probably posted 2 years ago. Just got a comment notification 2 days ago from 2 students at that school saying, "What? We have solar panels on the roof? I had no idea. That's so cool."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
to your point, solar is so visual, and especially we're in this great time now where it means something when people see that you've made that statement. So yeah, that's wonderful. You touched
So,
on the snow. Just before we go further,
yeah.
um, what's the snow like on your solar carports? And like, does it come off with the angle? Is there cleaning, or is it just kind of like standard solar? The snow will melt in due time.
Yeah, we're more of that mentality that the
Yeah,
snow will melt.
you'll
One of the nice
make it
things
up.
about carports is that we use bifacial panels, and the way we've designed our system, we really try to minimize shading on the back side of the panel. So even if you do have snow on top of the panel, there's a good chance that you're going to get enough light reflecting up into the bottom to activate the panel, make some heat, and start to melt that snow off quicker than it would naturally.
Yeah, beautiful. And so you got your solar carports. They're making a statement, and they have EV chargers, which we're all looking for charging now. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the features of the product is that we have got a precast concrete footing that we can use where we have the opportunity to. It doesn't work if you're building on top of bedrock and in a few other spots, but where it makes sense to install that precast concrete footing, we can run conduit right through it and then plunk a pedestal on top of that precast concrete footing to service the parking spots around that foundation with EV charging. It's really slick. There's no exposed conduit. Looks really good and functions really well.
That's a good point. Talking about wiring and conduits. Um, so when you look up under these carports, I mean, they're bifacial. So where's all the wiring, and how have you kind of made that look nice and pretty?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, we try and hide as much of the conduit as possible. And so typically when we're building a project, we're going to excavate a trench underneath the row of the foundations and hide a lot of conduit underneath the precast concrete footings. That keeps most of the conduit off the outside of the array, preserves a clean aesthetic, and there's a lower risk of damage and vandalism at the same time. The wiring for the panels themselves, we've got a protective flange that we've designed into our purlin. Haven't got to the whole value proposition yet, but we build with aluminum instead of structural steels. And you can make a lot of interesting shapes because aluminum is extruded. And so in our purlin profile, we've added in a protective flange that hides and protects wiring and keeps a nice clean aesthetic throughout the whole thing.
Beauty. What are the panels you guys are using, and is that something that can change as panels change?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the advantages of our systems is that we use a continuous rail. We haven't got to this yet either, but we've got a patent pending on a water handling feature that's built right into the rail. Essentially what we've done is design a structural support for the long edge of the panel so that we can spread out our purlins further and reduce material cost in the whole solar carport. And when we designed that structural piece of rail, we designed a micro gutter into the rail so that any water that makes its way down in between the panel and the rail is caught by the micro gutter and can be carried to wherever it needs to go on the site. So we can integrate with gray water systems for irrigation or building gray water. We can integrate with what's called infiltration galleries, which is underground water management, or we can just send to stormwater if that's what makes sense on the site. But to answer the original question around rails, because we've got a continuous rail, we can work with any size panel. So we can cut lengths of that rail to match with any panel. And when we are in product supply mode, which is how we're looking to grow this division, not just building with it ourselves, but supplying to other solar EPCs across North America and hopefully beyond, we can work with whatever panel that EPC likes to work with. And so this is one of the advantages of the system is you don't need to use a particular panel in order to use our carport system.
Right. Great. Touch on what you said about the gutters. Like, this is what's so exciting to me about the renewable energy space is that it's not just solving one problem. You know what I mean? I've heard of people like turning on their stoves, and instead of that heat just dissipating, they capture that heat and they send it up to the loft. And you know what I mean? There's this constant thought about how can we maximize every single part of this? And obviously that's something that VCT does and the team of engineers, I guess, enjoy doing, hey?
Yeah, most definitely. This water handling thing is, I think, really key in Canadian and northern U.S. Climates, and really anywhere where you get a decent amount of precipitation, whether or not it's rain or snow. So, most solar carports out there are steel structures and not aluminum. And one of our big parts of our value proposition is that we can prefabricate everything, and it's lightweight enough that an EPC can build without. without needing to subcontract that to a metal company that's specialized in the erection of steel structures. So as an EPC, you're able to capture more margin on a project, excuse me. And that aluminum system has got all kinds of benefits as well. It's not going to rust. It's not going to burden owners with maintenance costs over the long term. And we really try to take the owner's perspective when we build these systems and when we design these systems is, what is it going to be like to own this? What's it going to be like to have this in your parking lot for 25, 30, 40 years? And, how would we want to have that experience ourselves as an owner?
What about the spacing? I'm just so you got your pillars. Does a car park between pillar, or is it like 2 cars to pillar? Is there room for the doors?
Yeah.
Trying to picture this.
So without any visuals to kind of show off at this time, we do try
Send
and
me
design
some.
for the user.
We'll layer them over the podcast. Send me some.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. So we are trying to design for the user. And the first carport that we built was built with racking from another company, an aluminum provider from Europe. And one of the things we didn't like about the system is that the support beams came straight off at a diagonal from the foundation, and doors would impact those structural members. And so when we redesigned our system, we designed a trident shape so that the main column that comes up from the foundation would come up higher before branching out. And with those branches being higher rather than coming all the way from the base, we're able to provide clearance for car doors so that the user experience is better.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the challenges? So you're out there, you're talking about this product. I'm biased because I just love this idea right out of the gate, but there's a lot of negative Nellies out there. Not taking you out, Nelly. Love all the Nellies. But what are they saying? What are the challenges that you're coming up with when having these conversations?
Yeah, most kind of common objections around carports and solar carports is not really like the amenity factor or anything like that. It's just the cost.
Right.
Whenever you build a solar carport, you have to get into civil work. You have to do structural work. It's not just the mechanical and electrical that EPCs are used to. And it's not just that mechanical and electrical scope of work that people are used to paying for. And so typically what we encounter is they're expensive, and they're not worth it because they're so expensive. And we're looking to change the game on that. We've kind of heard what it's like to build something from scratch, build a custom carport from lots of different parties over the years. And we can really bring some value because we are prefabricating, right? You don't have to design from the ground up from scratch every single time. We've got a lot of the engineering work done and it can be copy pasted from site to site. And so we're able to provide better economics than people are used to seeing on solar carports. And it's not perfectly solved, but we think that we're making good strides towards making solar carports more affordable and tenable in more places.
Can you use the new Ontario incentives? Can all of the incentives, the ITC, the new solar home program, can they be used for solar carports?
Yeah, so they all do apply. So the Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit does apply to solar carports, including the civil and structural components of those projects. So that's a nice win for us and for any EPC who's going to be building them. The economics are going to look better than just the overall project cost for system owners, as long as they're a tax-paying corporation and can meet the criteria of that grant. It's a nice win for them on the economics of a project. And then the other thing is the Ontario grants that you mentioned. So there's 2 different streams of funding. One is for residences for solar and battery, and then there's one for businesses as well through the Save On Energy program. Those incentives require that the solar be installed in load displacement rather than net metering configuration. So the use case needs to be very, very carefully assessed and modeled to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for the building, first of all. But then also for the load profile at that building. And so we got to, generally make sure that the solar is going to be a good fit and able to make use of this grant. But assuming that that's all checked off, solar carports do apply for this grant as well. So that grant here in Ontario is 86 cents a watt, up to a megawatt. So it caps out at 860,000 and, can provide a nice discount on a project, which then would have the remainder eligible for the Clean Tech ITC. And so when you're looking at carports, in some situations, recent projects that we've quoted, we've seen through these two incentives around 50% of project costs saved.
Yeah, that's massive. It's massive across the country. We're seeing that as well here in BC, and that's part of that boom why everyone's looking to go solar and take advantage of this. With the solar carports, can they be net metered? Now, to get this other rebate, they have to be load displacement, but is that kind of part of the pitch as well?
Yeah, for sure. We generally prefer net metering whenever we've
Yeah.
got the chance to, just because it allows you to make use of the grid as a battery, and build up credits during peak seasons and make use of those credits in the off seasons. So when we build these, and how we recommend they get built, is that all the power from the array flows directly to the building that they're attached to, whether or not that's net metering or load displacement. We want the power from the array flowing to the building. And then we would bring lines back out for anything at the array that needs power. So if there's EV charging there, we're going to bring lines out for that. If there's lighting or cameras or anything like that, weather stations, we'll bring power back out for those things rather than having the array power directly.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, because I'm picturing you got your EV charger right there. The sun's going right to the EV charger in the car. How many panels does it generally take to charge an EV? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, have you said like
there's a lot of variables there?
100, I know 100,
Yes.
So many variables, but in general, the conversation, if someone says, look, I got a 40 cars in my car park. If I put carports throughout this thing, can I charge these 40 EVs? What's your answer to that, I guess?
Yeah, it'd be the same as what I just said, isn't that? It's complicated.
Yeah.
So, it depends on what charger you have. It depends on what kind of vehicle you have.
Yeah,
There's so many variables. So, I don't think I'd give out a quick answer to that question other than, we're happy to model that for you. We got smart people who work here who can get you a great answer for that. But, we'd want to know a few of the parameters before.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Rookie mistake. I know that. What about inverters and where's that happening? Is it microinverters? Is it string inverters?
So we have in our company's history installed lots and lots and lots of microinverters, but we are entirely off that as a strategy now. Reason being, we've seen much higher failure rates in microinverters than advertised and less support for replacement parts than we were promised. And as a result, we are looking to minimize part count on power electronics as much as possible. So we are always on string inverters. We never install optimizers. We want to have as few breakable pieces in our systems as possible. And so always string inverters. And
no optimizers?
No.
Just simple, pure Christmas light style.
As few pieces as possible.
Right.
Again, taking the owner's perspective here. Optimizers, microinverters may give you a couple points, bump on your production, but instead of maybe 10 points of failure for power electronics, you might have, 100 in the same system.
Right.
And when you look at all those pieces stacking up over 20 years or 25 years or longer with carports, it's just asking for maintenance issues down the road.
Right.
So when a string inverter goes down, we're there. We replace it in a day or two and we're back up on production and everything's humming along again. But, if you've got one micro inverter down out of, say, 200 on a site, or 10 micro inverters down out of 200 on a site, like how soon are you actually going to get there and replace those? And you replace them every time a single one goes down, because it's like death by 1,000 cuts when you stack it up into the thousands and thousands.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I guess the advantage is to VCT Group doing a lot of commercial and solar carports is you're not dealing with the variables that residential provide. The trees, the tilt, the this, that, your nice, simple, flat roof. So there is less obstructions. You have more control over that. So you could use a string inverter in that case. Is that kind of the reasoning?
And parking lots tend to be open, sunny places as well. So it's a good fit there. And when we install the string inverters, we like to install them as close to the array as possible. So typically we're installing them up high in the array. So that they're within a meter of the array, which again is minimizing part count on some other required components.
Right on. Where's VCT Group at with the distribution of the solar carport? You mentioned there's some patents still coming on some things. Have you installed any in Ontario? What's the interest been like?
Yeah. So we've built a handful over the past few years. Our very first project was in 2018. That's the one I was referencing earlier with another company's racking. And since then, we've built a handful more projects, and we've got 7 different sites in the construction calendar over the next 18 months. Some of those sites are multiple carports per site as well. And so in our own experience, we're seeing more interest and more sold work than we ever have before at a higher pace than we ever have before. And at the same time as we're doing our own construction projects, we are looking to grow as a product supplier of this system to other solar EPCs out there. So if that's you, and you're a solar EPC in Canada, we want to talk to you about being your product supplier. We are a made in Canada product. It's Quebec aluminum, Ontario manufactured. That's
There's
both
the
the
plug.
extrusions and the post-processing all happening in Ontario. And at a time where there's a lot of US and Canada tensions going on around trade, we want to be your made in Canada carport solution. So we feel like even before all the Canada US stuff came up, we had a great value proposition. But for EPCs in Canada now, we think that we're off the charts in terms of a great option for you.
Yeah, and that's, if there's one thing the U.S. Person to be named has done, it's united Canada and made us look all made in Canada. So that's wonderful to hear that that's what you guys are doing in that space and with these solar carports. I got to ask the question just because those listening are going to say, okay, this is all well and good. And I got a lot of friends in business development when it comes to solar, and ballpark is hard to nail. But what's the ballpark of a system?
Yeah, again, I'll answer carefully and
Okay,
in a little bit of generality, just because this is a very public forum. If anyone wants to chat with me offline, I'll be happy to provide a little bit more detail. But we're seeing saleable prices for carports at a scale of a few hundred kilowatts or more, kind of being in the $3 to $4 a watt range or so. So, we have sold projects in that range and are building projects in that range over the coming year and a half. And we, in our experience, the market will bear a cost in that range. And with our system, we think that we can make money selling carports and building carports in that range.
That's actually not bad, honestly. I think Saskatchewan, like residential's $4 a watt or something.
Yeah.
So, the fact that you can have something that is going to be wide open, has multiple benefits, not just electricity production, but shade for the car, curb appeal, all the things you mentioned. That's not too bad, actually. Yeah, that's cool.
We think so too. And especially if you've got incentives that can claw some of that back, it makes it look even better.
Yeah, almost 50% you mentioned.
It's not going to be 50% when your cost per watt is in that range, because it caps out at 86 cents a watt.
That's right.
But if you take 86 cents a watt off a cost in that range and then take 30% off the remainder through the Cleantech ITC, we start to maybe approach half off the whole project.
Yeah. Great. Wonderful. Well, Zac, thanks for joining the Solar PV Cast to share the story of VCT Group and, of course, the Solar Carports. I personally want to see these things everywhere because, again, it's like a no-brainer to me. It's like peanut butter and jelly, car parking lots, and solar carports. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so too. And if I could take maybe just one more minute, there's one more thing I wanted to get to, which is the patent pending water handling system that we've got integrated into the design. So a big pain point with people who have built carports before is the gap between modules. Right. So when you build a carport, the modules will have a little bit of a gap in between. Mm-hmm. And that gap is typically either left open or it's filled with caulking or with gaskets. Now, if it's left open, when it rains, is going to come down through there. When snow and ice melts, you're going to have that dripping through.
So
typically that's going to...
Sorry, not to cut you off. So I'm just, again, picturing this. I pictured panels on a roof, but the panels are the roof.
Yeah. So this is a key differentiator for what we do. If the panels are on a roof, you get zero bifacial gain, and you don't get the advantages of bifacial, kind of like melting snow and ice off.
Totally.
And so our system, the panels are supported with a rail, and that rail provides all the water handling. So unlike competitive systems where caulking or gaskets will fill that gap, panels are aluminum. They're going to move with heat and cold. That gap changes shape and changes size. So if there's caulking in there, it will crack. If there's gaskets in there, they will peel out after some time. And what you get left with is a mess and the same problem you were trying to solve from the get-go. So our rail system is mechanical. It works. It's seen years in Canadian winter. It's going to last the lifetime of the system. And it's going to provide not only water management, but also prevent the buildup of icicles underneath the array, which can be a big problem when there is a gap between modules, because you'll have snow and ice melting on top and then dripping down and refreezing. And we've seen icicles on systems that you wouldn't want to have fall on you or your kid or your car. So that's one thing that we wanted to solve with our system is how water, snow, and ice are managed with Solar Carports. And we feel like we've got just a tremendous value proposition in that part of the game.
Yeah. So again, panels are coming together and there's the gap, and you essentially have a rail under that gap to catch everything.
Exactly. So that rail is structural. It supports the long edge of the panel. Again, that allows us to spread out purlins and reduce material costs. But that rail has the water management integrated right into it. So any water that makes its way down between the panel and the rail is going to get caught by this micro gutter and then directed to wherever we want to take it.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. And that's it's not just, there's multiple benefits to these systems, and and it goes to show the minds in the renewable energy sector are not just satisfied with solving one problem. They're trying to solve multiple problems with each project, which again is why I love this sector.
Yeah.
Very cool. Someone wants information, Zach, go for it.
Right on. So yeah, you can find me at VCT Group. My email, is that what we do here? Is it our website?
I'll throw it up on the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. Email is Zac Jolliffe at VCTgroup.com. Welcome inquiries about this system or anything to do with solar, EV charging, or renewable energy finance. Happy to have conversations. So yeah, look me up.
Beauty. Zach, thanks for joining the Solar PV Cast and sharing about this made in Canada product, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
The Solar PV Cast by Shift with Chris Palliser. To begin your solar journey, visit shift.ca.